This is a sexual accountability worksheet. What it does is it has a different section for each area that allows us to be able to keep track and be accountable for our actions. So for everything on here, some of these things will not be reviewed until we get closer to further along in the series. But this page is something that in the workbook I allow people to make photocopies of. So the first part of it, again, this is a matter of accountability. So the answering yes and no and the number is what you see in each column. So the first thing being, have you masturbated this week? Now, we will talk about the specifics of masturbation and what that looks like, just basically understanding what that is, because I know one of the things I've heard, especially when talking with younger people, is that we justify what is or is not appropriate, and not understanding what the biblical standard is. So that will be something that goes on from there. But if you believe you have, you would mark yes in that column there, or no, and then you put the number of times. The second one is, did you flirt with another person this week? Again, use your discretion. You can tell when you have been flirting or being friendlier than you typically are with other people, or just for a specific person. We'll talk about all of these. Did you have a daydream of a kiss or kiss something, such as your hand or your pillow, or just your arm, the things that we do when we're fantasizing or daydreaming at times? Did you watch a show with sexual themes, such as a movie that had a sexual encounter in it, soap operas, things that have references to sexual scenarios, even if it's not actually pornographic in nature, just doesn't have a sexual theme, getting together with somebody, pursuing a relationship, etc. Have you read any romance novels or novels with sexual content? This is a biggie. A lot of times we read something and then before we know it, we find that it's a romance novel, and so we have to, check again our purity in that. The next column is, did you dream about having a fantasy relationship? Again, this is just holding us accountable for those daydreams, those night dreams we choose not to wake up from. Do we think about, wouldn't it be nice if I were with so-and-so, or if my husband were more like so-and-so's husband, or something like that. Did you dress for someone else to notice you? We sometimes don't think about the way we dress, but when you find that you're spending a little more time primping and looking nice, that can be an issue. Have you had any physical contact sexually with others? We'll talk about, again, the specifics of that, but this is not just sex. This means, moving on somebody, grinding, hugging, kissing, having a very affectionate hug, those type of things. So put all of that down when you are considering this. If you are married, remember that this is considering who is somebody outside of your husband. Did you get any pornography or previous adult flashbacks? Sometimes we may not actively view pornographic material or sexually explicit themes. However, we can remember things that we've seen before and focus on the memory to get re-stimulated. And have you used a substance to lower your inhibition? This can be drugs, this can be alcohol, these can be prescription medications just to let yourself zone out or not feel for a little bit. These are things to kind of just keep track of so you understand if this is leading to something else, okay? So then moving further up on the page, some of the techniques of avoiding temptation include things such as praying, not just about the temptation, but also about the emotion underlying the temptation. Sometimes one of the last things we remember to do is to talk to God about it. Again, we're not asking God to stop it. What we do is we talk with Him honestly about what is going on in our hearts. The rest of these are different techniques that we will talk about further in the series, but they're good to understand. One of them is stop and switch, where you stop a thought and switch to something else, that either the negative consequence that comes with it or just switch to something so that you don't dwell on the emotional connection that comes from a specific thought. The other one is to take the 3-second rule. A lot of times when we're about to get emotionally involved in something, if we just take a few seconds to distract ourselves and think of something else, count to 15 in a foreign language, or name all the presidents of the United States, then we won't have that emotional connection. You can walk away, leave the situation, or to do a scripture journal. Look for scriptures and journal which ones will help you during your struggle. So that's the first page of the of understanding the workbook of the accountability sheets. Again, these sheets are something that you can use by yourself. You can use them in conjunction with a discipling partner, somebody who helps you and holds you accountable, that you can be really honest with. The other part of this worksheet is, again, keeping track of some other things. So we'll start first on this page here, and one of them is, what did we change a hobby? Did we stop inappropriate behavior and do something different? So I want you to think about your successes and failures. So the first part is name a time when you were able to use one of the above techniques or your own to avoid giving in to temptation. We all get tempted, ladies, but what's important is that we make the decision to honor God with our bodies, our minds, our thoughts, and our emotions. So celebrate it. Name a time when you avoided temptation. When did you not use an appropriate technique to fight a sexual urge or temptation or sexual urge? And again, this relates to sometimes we don't use the techniques realizing that we just didn't think about it. What do you need to focus on or rethink this next week in order to understand God's standard for purity? So these are about setting some goals of what you can do. We always tell ourselves, well, I'll just stop. That's not setting a goal. That's not thinking of what we can do. So it's just important to think of really coming up with a plan, again using the above named things from the previous page to help you. And what should you celebrate yourself that helped you to feel all right? The majority of this really has to do with understanding self-esteem and building that back up. So what do you this is again spending some time thinking about what we can do to celebrate that. On the next page, once you get specific about your confession, this is important because being open keeps Satan from using our thoughts, our emotions, our urges against us. So this is where you have the ability to write out just specifically what happened, what you felt, what led up to it, how far did you let your thoughts go, what did you want to do, what did you do, and there's a lot that can go on within a week. Sometimes you don't have as much to report. But it's good to use this again as a caliber to help you predict when you're going to struggle. So this is the accountability worksheet, and this is the first part of the Women of Virtue, is going to be using that accountability worksheet every week and sharing it with somebody who you trust.